So it's a quarter after 11, July 3rd, 2017. I thought I'd have a floating holiday at my job, but I was told that it's a mandatory day off, so here we are. I'm probably going to try to come out with another ACA Today video in the next 2 days. Maybe another video on the Bill and Hillary Clinton Presidential Penitentiary Library. And I am hoping for another Troll Tribune video, interview with somebody else. I haven't set anything up yet. It's kind of like people are with their families. My family is out of town, so that's about it. I was at a wedding yesterday and kind of really saw for the first time in a long time people actually enjoying themselves out there, in their own lives, which is, I think it's increasingly rare for me. Given the past year and a half, I was slowly drawn in. Initially, I didn't really want to be interested in the election because there was nothing interesting for me to see in it except for the fact that I hate Hillary Clinton. Always have been a huge hater of Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton, not as much, because there's more things that are, and I'll admit it's just a superficial thing, but Bill Clinton had a lot of appeal to him. He was a person who could really get you interested and drawn into a topic. And I'm going to segue into the fact that the Democratic Party has been Hillarized. They've become permanently fixed into this Hillary Clinton way of doing things. There's no charisma left, which is the least of their problems. So if there's no real engaging leader at the top of the Democratic Party, you are not going to get people to really buy into their agenda here. They're not gonna start listening. Now, I know what you're saying. Bernie Sanders is people are saying, oh, he's the future of the Democratic Party. You're so wrong on so many levels. Bernie Sanders is getting tainted more and more by his association with the Democrats. If he would have run as an independent, or if he would have kind of sat out the 2016 race after he withdrew, I think Bernie Sanders would definitely be the face of the new opposition to Donald Trump. But the more he associates with the clowns that are in the establishment Democratic Party, his star is just beginning to flicker and die out. I think that for progressive voters, which I'm not one of, they have to look towards a future candidate, and they have ones it's ridiculous the amount of denial that goes on the left. That they think, oh, we can just rest on our laurels and support this guy Bernie Sanders, who, for all intents and purposes, hasn't reciprocated any of their loyalty. He hasn't gone and done anything to justify it. And the worst thing is that beyond that, we have on the left side of the spectrum. I'm not on the left. I'm actually pretty far to the right. The worst thing is that they continue to behave as if they don't have to change anything. They are talking about changing things, but they're not actually changing anything, which is the real problem.
Nancy Pelosi has a popularity problem, but is she really to blame for the disarray in the Democratic Party, or is she a scapegoat? Let's discuss now. Senior political commentator Bakari Sellers.
I'm going to attach a video already on this by the Hard Bastard, so I'm not coming at this from just a fresh perspective. I've already seen a analysis of it, but I'm going to give some of my own points. The Hard Bastard, by the way, if you're a progressive or conservative, fantastic channel where this guy just lets loose, and you can't ask for any more. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. This guy is telling it the way that he sees it.
Van Jones and Nina Turner. Hello, good evening to all of you. Bakari, you first. Good evening, brother. I'm sure you guys saw this. Look at it. Good evening, brother. I love it. Last time I had Representative Tim Ryan on.
So it's pretty funny that they start off, one of them says, "Good evening, brother." It's a panel of 4 black people talking about the Democratic Party leadership. Think about how ironic it is. The Democratic Party was led for 8 years by Barack Obama, and now the black Americans are completely displaced from the leadership. Now, some of you will say, oh, Tom Perez technically counts because he's Dominican, I think, as a black American. Tom Perez is basically a puppet right now. He's not leadership. He's a face. He's a spokesperson. He's a front. He's a puppet. So, and we'll get to that a little.
This is what he told me. You think Nancy Pelosi is more toxic than Donald Trump? You know what? The honest answer is, in some areas of the country, yes, she is. That's the honest answer. Why so? I just think, first, as unfair as it is, there have been a lot of people that have spent a lot of money running negative ads against her. And I think that in certain areas, like in some of these special election districts, it doesn't benefit our candidates to be tied to her. Bakari, is that accurate? No, I don't think it's accurate, and I don't think Tim Ryan.
So why are they coming to analyze the viewpoint of Tim Ryan using somebody like Bakari Sellers? I think that's a major paradox, and I'll get some background on Bakari Sellers for a second, and I'll compare that to Tim Ryan. Okay, Sellers was born on September 18th, 1984, which means he's a millennial, and is the son of Gwendolyn and Cleveland Sellers. He grew up in Bamberg County, South Carolina. And, a lot of this is not really that relevant. In 2005, he earned a bachelor's degree in African American Studies from Morehouse College, a private all-male and historic. Morehouse is where Spike Lee graduated from. In 2008, he earned a Juris Doctorate from the University of South Carolina School of Law. Sellers has worked for Congressman James Clyburn and former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin. So this is a professional politician talking about what voters really want. He's never been in any other profession besides being nominally a lawyer since 2007 and a politician. And he was, I think it says up here, he was a state representative in South Carolina for 8 years. So he's been a lawyer and a politician. And he's trying to tell people what really is the score with Nancy Pelosi. Now, I think on the screen they did have a graphic where they did explain what he does. But, with all due respect, and I know that I shouldn't be saying that people of diverse backgrounds can't really relate to other people's ways of life, but he's responding to Tim Ryan. And I know Tim Ryan is from Youngstown, which is one of the more Midwestern blue-collar cities in the U.S. It's if you watch the show of The Zero Cool, who's a YouTuber that I've worked with. I was on his live stream one day, and we were talking about Detroit. Youngstown is kind of a mini Detroit. It has a lot of the same industrial employment issues that Detroit does. So why are you having somebody like what's his name? It says Zionist advocacy here. That's pretty funny. He went to. I mean, I'm not gonna say. Look, he can have his own points of view and whatever. I guess he's an AIPAC guy too, which I happen to not agree with AIPAC. I think he comes from it more as an interest. Like he's one of these politicians that is married to lobbyist money, and that includes AIPAC. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't advocate for a view that you support, like Israel. Just like I wouldn't say the same thing. Keith Ellison is an advocate of Palestine. Am I supposed to tell him, oh, don't say what you really mean, just lie? That's not the way that we are supposed to stand our politicians up. So this Bakari Sellers, is repping for Nancy Pelosi against Tim Ryan, who's really talking about what the voters want. Okay, and this is a person who's been just a lawyer and a politician his entire life.
Is the answer by any stretch, but I do think he's a hater a little bit. I mean, regardless of whether or not he's a hater, I think that it's very difficult to blame.
See how Don Lemon already tries to undermine what Tim Ryan said?
Nancy Pelosi for losses the Democrats have in Kansas, Montana, South Carolina, and Georgia. The fact is that we need to win 24 seats to take back the House, and there's 71 seats that are bluer than that is in Georgia 6. And even in South Carolina, we made up a lot of ground down. So I do believe that we are.
It's not just the losses that they had in those states this year. The Democrats did very poorly over the past 4 cycles compared to the Republicans. They've lost in 2010 in the House. They lost in 2012 in the House, even with Barack Obama giving them wind at their sails. In 2014, they lost even more than they lost in 2010. And then in 2016, they still lost the House again. And now they're losing all these special elections. It's not only this past string of defeats. And Nancy Pelosi has been the party leader the entire way through.
I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. However, I think the answer is nuanced.
It's no baby. It's an old spinster lady. That's what you're throwing out with the bathwater.
Because I do think that we have a leadership crisis, that we have a messaging crisis in the Democratic Party, and that our leadership, frankly, is stale. Whether or not you're talking about Nancy Pelosi or Bernie Sanders, whether or not you're talking about Joe Biden or Chuck Schumer, I think we need to revamp our leadership because it's very hard to be a...
What are you supposed to do? Think about it. He's talking about stale leadership, and first of all, he's not calling for Nancy Pelosi to step down. I'm going to tell you straight up, if you're a Democrat, you should be wishing that Nancy Pelosi would step down, which he's not going to do. I'll tell you the real reason that these people are not, I think this guy is going to run for Congress, first of all, or one of these other positions up for a ballot in 2016. So he needs Nancy Pelosi's funding, and so do the majority of these congressmen around the country in states like Florida or in the hinterland, the areas like borderland Texas and Arizona. You have an issue where these Democrats, they are in desperate need of funding in order to just stay afloat. Don Lemon goes on to ask Sellers if he's not technically agreeing with Tim Ryan, because he's saying, the faces are all old, and they are all old. You have an entire generation in gaps between the oldest Democrats. You have Patrick Leahy, who looks like he's about to croak in the Senate, from Vermont. Then you have Bernie Sanders, also old as hell. Chuck Schumer. You have, on the Democratic side, you have tons of guys that are, this John Conyers in Michigan. The man is basically, I think they need a walker for him to get around. And Maxine Waters is I think 81 years old, and that's the face of the Democratic leadership, and not like last or 2 weeks ago they were showing all these videos of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is nowhere even near to being part of the leadership. On the other side, who have we been seeing leading the Democrats? It's been people like, the Republicans. You've seen people like Devin Nunes, Jason Chaffetz, who's retiring, Trey Gowdy. The youthful faces. Ted Cruz is in his, I think, early 50s. These are all people that seem like they have a career ahead of them. The Democratic Party doesn't have people. Remember when they were touting John Lewis, who was a civil rights leader, but in the 60s, as the face of the resistance against Trump? So how does he react to this? It's kind of comical.
And that is my concern. But aren't you guys saying the same thing? I don't believe we're saying the same thing because I think he's castigating and throwing blame. I mean, people forget about all the victories that Nancy Pelosi has, and they want to back the bus up over Nancy Pelosi. I refuse to let that happen. I have to say I saw Nancy. I just happened to run into her at an event here in New York City tonight, and just for a second, she sort of said the same thing to me. People forget all.
Really? You're hanging out at events with Nancy Pelosi, are you? You know, I mean, off the record, talking to people that are in the Democratic leadership. I mean, does that really sound like a network that's divorced from the DNC?
Well, you wouldn't have this reason. You would not have the Affordable Care Act right now without the strength of Nancy, many others, but particularly.
And if it wasn't for the Affordable Care Act, it's possible the Democrats wouldn't have lost their majority in Congress.
Without the strength of Nancy. What do you think of that?
I mean, Don, look, NBA draft was tonight, and we should take a message from that. The teams that were losing wanted to draft players that could help them win. And it is just as simple as that. And if the NBA can do that every year, they don't wait every 4 years, they don't wait every decade, they assess every year. And getting new players on the field doesn't take away from what players have done in the past or legacy players, but what it does say that if the NBA can do that just to win for teams to win a trophy, we as Democrats have to do a real assessment, a real autopsy, and to determine whether or not we are going to start to win so that we can push policies that really help the American people. I mean, we got a lot more than trophies on the line here. We got Medicare for all on the line, social justice, environmental justice, a whole bunch of stuff is on the line for every day.
These guys are just nodding as if, you know, shut up, please. We don't want to talk about any of those issues. We don't want to talk about the issues that actual progressives are calling for. We want to talk about our values, leading with our values. That's, you know, I'm kind of stealing the Jimmy Dore line where he's making fun of that. But if you're a conservative on my side, you just love the way that these hideous morons like the guy on the left are just ignoring, you know, the real face of the progressive left, that they're actually talking about what people want to talk about. Nina Turner is correct. She is correct. She's the perfect spokesperson for the future of the Democratic Party. She's well prepared all the time, looks professional, acts professional, and presents her views professionally. And these guys are just trying to cover it up. And that's the woman, you know. I think Nina Turner, to be honest with you, Bernie Sanders is the past of the progressive movement. Nina Turner should be the future of it.
Working Americans in this country, so we got to do something different, and we got to do better, and not having the willingness to assess that and have an honest conversation about that, and then to do something different.
Look at them blinking uncomfortably.
Einstein defined it. It's called insanity.
Okay. I have to ask you, Van, you worked in the Obama administration. So my question to you is, because now people are saying that the Republican Party is the Trump Party. There's probably lots of blame to go around, but did the Obama coalition that was built around President Obama and not necessarily around Democrats? Was there a false sense of security among Democrats, and did the Obama folks leave any oxygen in the room for anybody else?
Well, that's a complicated answer to that question. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, with regard...
Complicated answer. Yes! Yes!
To Nancy Pelosi. We have a broken Democratic Party, but one of the few things in the party that works well is Nancy Pelosi. Her job is to raise...
She works well for Nancy Pelosi.
Money and keep the Democrats together in the House, and she's been doing that. I don't think she's the problem with the party. There's about 1,000 problems. I wouldn't put her even on the list. So what's the problem? Everything that Bakari just talked about, this crisis in messaging and leadership, is not just about one person.
Exactly.
She's actually doing technically on the books, even by Nina standards, she's actually doing her job well. But there are a bunch of other jobs that are not being done well. And I think there's actually a consultant class of people who are incompetent, who are tone deaf.
So that would include people like Van Jones and Bakari Sellers. That is the incompetent consultant class, because they haven't offered, they're not offering new policy positions. They're not offering new criticisms of the Trump administration. They're not offering a newspaper. These two guys, by the way, I don't know if Bakari Sellers is going to run for office, even though he has been in office before. Van Jones has never been elected to anything. He's just been always this whispering wind in the ears of Barack Obama and other top-ranking Democrats. That's what he's always done since he was kicked out of the administration for being a closet Marxist.
Make a ton of money who are in the way. And so then as long as they're there, as long as you have this blanket over the party sucking up money, giving bad ideas, data dummies that put out huge operations around computing and that kind of stuff and still can't tell you where to go and what to do, that's a much bigger problem. And so with regard to your question around the Obama years, I think that the party got very happy and very lazy having such an extraordinary figure at the top and did not pay attention to the 1,000+ people who lost their positions throughout the country, and that is a problem you have to turn our attention to now. But to me, it is just bizarre to, out of all the things in the party, pick on Nancy Pelosi when she's frankly the one person doing her job.
She's a failure. She's been a failure for almost 8 years now. She has not had a single successful electoral season as the leader of the House Democrats. And to be frank, I mean, she lost with Obama and she's lost without Obama. She had 2 victories. One of them was because of George Bush's incompetence. It wasn't because of Nancy Pelosi. Nobody's been inspired by Nancy Pelosi. Okay, and then the second one was because of Obama in 2008.
And this Nancy Pelosi discussion is phenomenal because I don't think it's not a question about the individual and whether or not she does her job well. I think we have to change the face of the Democratic Party because due to this, let's look at this Barack Obama conversation. Democrats do well when we have the JFK.
How can you change the face of the Democratic Party when the actual prime movers and shakers? I mean, the hard bastard already said it in his, so I'm going to try to skew away and talk about some other things so you're not going to think, oh, you're just repeating everything that the hard bastard said. Well, I think it is worth repeating that if you keep all the same faces in the picture, then you're not changing the face of the party. These are the people that drag the party into the shithole. And that's the reason why many people, and you know, I'll even conclude, you know, technically I was a Democrat. I would have become a Democrat back in the 90s. I came from a Democrat family. I think the rest of my family still is Democrats. But they've left a lot of people behind. A lot of people have drifted away from the Democratic Party to either side of the spectrum. Some people are too far to the left to agree with the Democratic Party, and some people have gone over to the other side, like me. You know, so are they supposed to deny this truth? We're not loyal to any. I'm not loyal to the Republican Party, so you know they're not changing the face at all. The Republican Party has changed its face to some degree. There's still some old toads left at the top, like Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, Orrin Hatch. You know, there's a ways to go in the Republican Party, but you can see some turnover occurring, and I think in the next election, it's possible that they will, bring in some people. Excuse me. They'll bring in some people that will start to displace even those older faces. I hope. I can't guarantee anything.
When we had the Bill Clintons, when we had the Barack Obamas, the historic figures. But even more importantly, I don't want to mince any words. This is still Barack Obama's party. I mean, we can talk about Joe Biden. We can talk about Elizabeth Warren. We can have a People's March and talk about Bernie Sanders, but this is Barack Obama's party. And the coalition that Barack Obama had has been the core of the Democratic Party for a very long period of time. That core is African-American women. That is how we win. We lost this election in 2016 because African-American voters, the turnout of African-American voters compared to 2008 and 2012, went down in every single swing state. In Georgia 6, African-American voters didn't turn out. In South Carolina 5, African-American voters did not turn out. And so we need to make sure that not only are we getting more progressive, not only are we quoting white workers.
You can't get more progressive if you're not actually talking about progressive. Nina Turner is talking about progressive ideas, which I don't agree with. But this is a woman with integrity. Okay, this is a woman with real class and you know, who's willing to take the bull by the horns. She's not some sort of just ogre sitting in a studio and pretend. I mean, I think it is a fake skyline behind her of Cleveland, because I don't see anything moving. I don't see any lights turning on and off, which would be. But you know, other than that, so that might be like a kind of a giveaway. But you know, by comparison, she is much better than them. They are just idiots. I can't even look at them. And you know, it's just the same person. It's three people that look basically they have nothing to offer. You have a panel of four people, four black people, okay? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have black people on CNN. I'm just saying that you have four of them that are debating how to get back to middle America. We're talking about that includes white Americans. By the way, there's no Latinos on the panel, and there's no Asians, and there's no there's nobody else. This is not a panel that is going to attract any attention. They're talking about black voters not voting in the Georgia special election. Think about this for a second. The candidate in that special election was running on the most central plank he could, because he was trying to attract white middle class and you know, upper middle class voters. There's a reason I think black people should find their own party too. They should back somebody like Nina Turner, because the Democratic Party is not offering anything for them. They've been offering the same failures for decades and decades. And you know, I'll probably ask you know, one of the other streamers that I do material with, Nick Taylor, to talk to me about that. Talk with me about that. We'll talk about why they are getting stale and just repetitive, because people just keep hearing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I think I'm going to need a part 2 for this. This is pretty much the same garbage people have been hearing. So they're not appealing to the white voter, the Midwestern voter that Tim Ryan is saying, look, Nancy Pelosi is poison to them. We can't win shit with her. So they're not talking to them. And they're not talking to their own, to the black community either. They're basically talking to the corporate bi-coastal class that they've been sold out to.
Class voters, but we also need to make sure that we are not taking the backbone of our party for granted and giving them the full throat. Okay, so to that, then if you say it's the Obama coalition, Nina, I'm going to let you get in. Then so that Obama coalition didn't turn out, and the other side ran against Nancy Pelosi. They didn't run against President Obama. Nina?
And that doesn't mean, I don't think there's a disagreement among the three of us. I don't personally believe that Leader Pelosi should be thrown under the bus. What I'm saying about the NBA analogy is this, is that fresh doesn't always mean young, but it just means that at certain points, at a certain time, people have to make a different play. And that is what we are facing. That is what the Democratic Party is facing. And the point about African-American women being the backbone of the Democratic Party, you doggone right African-American women are. But what have African-American women gotten for themselves, for their families?
Do you see the transition? I didn't see this in the other video, but do you see the way his face on the left, Bakari Sellers, his face just transforms? It just goes sour within like a second.
And the point about African-American women being the backbone of the Democratic Party, you doggone right African-American women are. But what have African-American women gotten for themselves, for their families? I mean, heck, in this country, there's never been an African-American woman serve as governor in the history of this country, and Democrats should be the first ones doing that. So when you have people like...
So her last point about a black woman needing to serve as governor, I don't think that that's really the most important issue. If she wanted to do it, you know, she should volunteer. If she was to run for governor here in Ohio, I think she would run better than any other Democratic candidate right now. I don't think she would win because the state's kind of really trending towards Trump, and I'm not even kidding. Ohio is not going to vote Democrat in the next election. I can tell you that, the midterms especially.
Leader Stacey Abrams of Georgia pushing it, trying to be that, not just the nominee, but to win that. When is the Democratic Party actually going to do something for its loyalist part of the base?
Look at all that nervous blinking.
People have to come out to vote, and I think sometimes we talk about this as if the voters owe the elected officials something, when it is the other way around. People have to earn that vote every single time.
I've got it wrong. Thank you. I appreciate it. When we come back, how Bill Cosby...
So, I didn't think that I'd go through this entire clip, but I did, because it just illustrates... I didn't get some of the body language when I was watching Hard Bastards' analysis, which I will link to, because he also tore them a new asshole. And this is something where progressives and conservatives can agree. From my perspective, I think that there should be opposition party that's capable of mounting an effective opposition, and that's not what the Democratic Party is today. And I'll go through some of the reasons for that in the next video. You just have a party of people that all they can do is snipe at each other and at Donald Trump. They can't present new ideas. They can't present an alternative on anything, on energy policy, on foreign trade. On foreign trade, remember, they rejected the Bernie Sanders position, which was overwhelmingly popular across party lines. It was the same position that Donald Trump had. On these other issues of healthcare, they're still defending the Affordable Care Act, which is falling apart. And, one last thing, because how long can I make this? When Bakari Sellers and Van Jones said that it's still Obama's party, that's not the way that you bring it forward. A lot of people are saying, now there's always going to be the faction of the American public that will never criticize Obama. They're going to say, oh, he was obstructed. He wasn't given a fair shake. He had to deal with so much crap. People were so racist to him. That was a cereal belch. So you got these people that are living in the past. Barack Obama will be an influence on the party, but it cannot. It can no longer be his party. They do have to develop a new group of people, because what if you have these people like John Kerry that Obama hired. He was a failure as Secretary of State. He was a failure as a senator. He was a failure as a presidential candidate. You had what's that guy's name? Robert Gates was his Secretary of Defense, a Bush holdover. You had Barack Obama was probably the biggest disappointment for progressives. He was arguably worse than Bill Clinton, even though Bill Clinton left a lot to be desired for them. They have not had a true progressive president probably since even Lyndon Johnson, I'd say. Jimmy Carter was a joke. Nobody took him seriously. He was a failure. And, we're just seeing the problem of having centrist candidates since probably, the Second World War. Most of these people are centrist candidates. Lyndon Johnson is an exception. I'd say Ronald Reagan is to some extent an exception. But, people are looking for true commitment to these policies that they're promoting, and that's not what they're getting from the Democratic Party. So I'll see you in part 2, and if it takes a while, have a nice day. Enjoy your 4th of July. I think I will see you again today, but just in case, enjoy and stay bold.